All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Where we'll be starting, we should keep the schedule. Nice to see you all here.
Nice to see you all here, despite the lunchtime. I really appreciate your presence.
My name is Szymon.
My name is Szymon, and I work at Schibsted. At Schibsted, we do applications and sites for news, ads, fintech, e-commerce, dating, and many, many more for the North and Central European countries. We are having two tech hubs in Poland, in Krakow and in Gdańsk. And guess what? We are hiring PHP developers. And we are sponsoring this event, despite we don't have a stand this year. I used to be a PHP developer. I still code, but I focus on being a manager for a team of 7 people. Many of them are senior developers. One of the things I do is helping my colleagues grow professionally. I've been giving my advice to many senior developers, and I want to share my experience with you. So, I'm going to talk about developing senior developers. This talk is dedicated to senior developers, but I believe that developers at different seniority levels, as well as leaders, managers, or even HR folks can learn something from it. I don't have much time, and the topic is pretty big, and I want to cover as many important insights I have, so it will be pretty wide and shallow. I will talk about different things and do some references to books and talks for those of you who would like to learn more. You will find a complete list on my Twitter in the pinned tweet. Nevertheless, I picked a couple of some specific subjects I like the most, and I will elaborate them briefly. But first, I would like to learn about you. Please raise a hand, those of you who are developers. Okay? And yeah, please keep your hands up if you perceive yourselves as senior developers.
Okay, and keep your hands up.
Okay, and keep your hands up. If you feel comfortable revealing your age just for statistic reasons, please keep your hands up if you're above 30.
Above 40?
Above 40?
Above 50?
Above 50?
No one above 50. Okay.
No one above 50. Okay.
Yeah, one person.
Yeah, one person. Thank you. Cool. What does senior mean? The word senior comes from Latin senior and means older, so it is strictly related to people's age. It's relative based on the group. So a senior citizen is a person with a significant age in the society, while a senior at high school is the last grade student. Still, it's usually one's age that determines seniority. How does it correspond to the to our industry? If I think about a senior in general, I see a person like this. Do you feel similar? But when I think about a senior software developer in particular, I might also see a person like this. This is Jakub Pawełski, who in the age of 19 became a senior developer in one of the Danish banks. I don't know if it makes him the youngest senior developer, it's at least the youngest senior developer I've read about. Why is it so that you can be in your teens and be perceived as a senior developer? I've been trying to find data about seniority distribution in our industry, but I haven't found anything reliable. So, I assumed that the seniority distribution of software developers could be described using the normal distribution represented here as a bell curve. If this was true, where would we intuitively put senior developers? I would put them somewhere around here, leaving the biggest part of the distribution for so-called mid-level developers. A minority on the left side would be interns and juniors, and minority on the right side would be staff or principal or others higher in rank. How does it correspond to the age distribution in our industry? I took this data from Stack Overflow's annual survey. It looks like the majority of us are in around 30. And if you compare this distribution to the bell curve, it will turn out that one should become a senior at around 35. This is still about 30 years of working before retirement. It gets more interesting if you take a look at years of experience. It seems that one should become a senior at about 10 years of experience. So, if you start your career as a high school graduate, it means that you should become a senior before 30. By the way, I love this tweet which says that if we give senior titles to people in the first decade of their career, we should introduce a new layer of elder software developer for people in the second decade and ancient software developer for those in the third decade. What if age or years of experience aren't the best factors to define someone a senior developer? What else could we use? Years of experience in the company. Say you work for 10 years in the company and you become a senior. Or an education. If you have MSc, you're a senior by default. Or a certificate. If you have ZCE or OCP or anything like this, you're a senior. A salary. A friend of mine worked in a company where there wasn't any official gradation. The company was acquired by a big corporation and they were forced to introduce a gradation system. So what did they do? They took people's salaries, defined some pay ranges, and put people to juniors, mids and seniors based on their salaries. A technology. I once heard about the company where after organization, all backend developers became senior developers, in contrast to ActionScript developers who were juniors. A medical condition. If you feel constant pain in your back, you're a senior. What do you think about those criteria? Do you think they are good or maybe they are bad? I don't think that they are fair. I think that there aren't any statistical criteria that make someone a senior. I think that a senior in our industry is a person who represents a set of attitudes. They need to have autonomy. There's a great talk of Randall Kutnick who describes it as you start as a solution implementer who just do what others tell, then you grow and you become a problem solver and you can find your own solutions to problems someone else gives to you. And after that, you become fully autonomous and you find problems to solve yourself. What else? Impact. Being good at what you do. Influence. What you can cause others around you to do. Authority. Do people truly respect you? Do they want to hear your opinion or follow your example? And cope with complexity. How much complex problems you can deal with. Anyway, if this is not about the age itself, you can become a senior pretty fast in your career. And if you started as a high school or college graduate, you can have still many, many years of work in front of you before you retire. And if you became a senior fast, you most probably are interested in growth and you don't want to stop here. So what can happen next? I've made this diagram to show potential career paths for senior developers, and it definitely isn't exhaustive. I think that a senior can go deep into technical expertise and become an expert in some specific field of programming or legacy code or you name it. Or they can turn into more holistic role and become an architect or a tech lead, engineering manager, business analyst, UX designer, product manager, project manager, and so on. I think that whatever path you choose, there's a set of skills you should possess to help you play each of these roles better and grow faster. And these are technical excellence, which simply means being good at software development. I won't cover this in my talk, but I can refer you to Martin Thompson's talk, who did it very well 2 years ago at GoTo conference in Amsterdam. Then holistic view, peopleware, so working with people and learning to learn. Let's take a closer look at them. I know many senior developers who are bored with their work. Every day is the same, I'm just moving tasks from to-do to done, I have no challenges. Employees in many professional groups feel similarly frustrated. Nurses are one of well-researched professional groups under this account. Back in the 1970s, United States, nurses were expected to follow orders without any questions. They had been professionally qualified medical personnel, though they never veered from doctors' orders despite obvious changes in patients' conditions or needs. In one experiment back then, a researcher called a hospital ward posing as a doctor and ordered the nurse to give a particular medication to a given patient. This order was rigged to trigger several alarm bells. It was given over the phone, not in writing. The particular medication was not on the usual approved list. The prescribed dosage was double the maximum amount, and the doctor on the phone was not known to the nurse or staff. Despite these clear warning signs, 95% of nurses went straight to the medicine cabinet. Fortunately, they were stopped by an compliance who explained the experiment and stopped them from carrying out the fake order. The attitude changed a lot since then. Nurses started to take more responsibility for patients' care and were given more authority by doctors. Nurses are usually closer to patients and can see low-level changes in their conditions easier, so sometimes they can make better decisions than doctors. After all, nurses started to truly see and act based on the higher goal of their profession, which is to cure people instead of just to execute doctors' orders. In effect, their job satisfaction rised just as their job quality. A win-win situation. Finding, understanding, and being led by a higher purpose at job helps. For many, be happier at work. And happiness at work has a big impact on happy life. And making better decisions. We don't develop software just for the sake of software development. Software development is meant to serve a higher purpose, which is usually connected with people. The software we build is very often meant to empower people, help them in their work or daily life, bring them joy, entertainment, hope, new possibilities, and so on. Think of it this way. If you develop software for a bank, you're helping. Some young couple get the mortgage so that they can buy a lovely house. Or you help some folks save money for a trip of a lifetime. Or you make it possible for some person to make money transfer to help their family in another country. The software you develop allows so many positive interactions. How cool is that? Gojko Adzic states that we should be making impacts, not just software. He had a series of talks about it a couple of years ago. He also wrote a book about impact mapping, which is a strategic planning technique. It helps in finding alignment between everyday development work and higher organizational goals. It focuses on impacts, which are desired changes in people's behavior we want to make with the software we built. And this is what you should focus on in your job as a senior software developer, on delivering impacts. And you need to learn how to deliver them effectively. You should do as least as possible to cause the impact. The less time and effort you spend on it, and the less code you write to make it happen, the better. After all, the best code is no code at all. What is also important is to narrow the gap between developers and the business. Close daily cooperation between these two groups, as suggested by Agile Manifesto, is essential. For developers, it's worth to invest in understanding the domain. It gives common context, better understanding, better decisions, reveals purpose, and focuses on business goals. Programmers are perceived as trustworthy, and they create better software, after all. A technique that supports this proximity of code and business domain is domain-driven design, coined by Eric Evans in his book. It is an approach to software development for complex needs specifically. It places the primary focus on the core domain and domain logic. It also helps in collaboration between technical and domain experts. In a result, the software we develop is more directly related to the domain it's built for. The other spectrum is knowing, understanding, and empathizing with your users. The business or the sponsors usually aren't the users of the software. They look at the problem and the software from a different perspective, and they may have difficulties with representing users' needs. If you want to build successful products for people, first of all, you need to understand them. It's worth taking a look at frameworks and techniques which focus on users and their needs. User research helps understand users and build greater empathy with them. User personas help synthesize users' needs for more effective discussions and better decision-making. User stories help to describe requirements from the user's perspective. When connected with the specification by example or behavioral-driven development, they help to create a better specification, limiting the unnecessary work and improving the overall quality. When connected with user story mapping, they help reveal features and plan for iterative delivery. User testing on different stages helps to verify assumptions and adapt quickly to build better software for users. If you can, become your own user. If you build an e-commerce site, buy on it. If you develop software for a bank, open an account there. If you create online marketplaces, trade there. Eat your own dog food. And remember, you build software for people, and these people are your users. Put the user front and center. Always. In fact, contact with people is inevitable at any work. Well, unless you work in a lighthouse. If someone told you when you were becoming a software developer that most of your time would be interacting with a computer and not people, then, well, they lied. And if someone told you that there were only two hard things in computer science, which are cache invalidation and naming things, then, well, they lied as well. The two hardest things in computer science are people and convincing others that people is the hardest thing in computer science. Like it or not, there are people around every part of software engineering. Software is ordered by people, used by people, written by people, validated by people, reviewed by people, and so on. Of course, in software engineering you can find many lonely starts who are doing great alone without interacting much with people, and this can work well. However, as the old African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. In the long run, engineers need to interact with people, and in positive programming, people isn't an easy topic. So, what should a senior developer know about people? Do you know the golden rule? It is the principle of treating others as oneself would wish to be treated. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. This concept appears prominently in Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Taoism, actually in any major religion. And it's even codified in Code of Hammurabi. This rule is as old as the world, and this is a very good rule, we should obey it. However, there is a risk in this rule. How does one know how others want to be treated? People are different. Let's say I don't treat myself seriously, and it's perfectly fine for me if someone else makes jokes about my look. Does it allow me to make jokes about other people's looks? Obviously, no. If I'm not touched by something, it doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't be touched by the very same thing. People are different. Our minds are full of bugs, and these bugs are fundamental errors in how we process information, make decisions, and evaluate situations. One of the types of bugs are cognitive biases. They lead our thinking astray. There's a cognitive bias called false consensus effect, whereby people tend to think that others also think the same way they do. We overestimate the extent to which our opinions, beliefs, preferences, values, and habits are typical of those of others. People are different. If something is important to me, it might be completely irrelevant to my colleague. By the way, this bias is important in user experience design. You're not your own user, and even if you eat your own dog food, you're not your dog. That's why I insisted on understanding your users a few minutes ago. Okay, but how to deal with this ugly bug? First, accept that people are different. Don't fight against those differences. There are great things that come from them. And studies prove that diverse teams are smarter and perform better. Second, learn about other people. Develop your empathy. Be truly curious of another person. Try to find what motivates them. Reveal their aspirations. Ask them about their needs and goals. Talk about their love stories. Chat about their daily life. The next time you eat lunch with your colleagues, try not to discuss this ugly bug you found in code or this new API you wanted to try. Talk about yourselves. What are you doing this evening? What did you enjoy most the last week? But be prepared that not everyone would be happy to talk about this stuff. People are different. With some folks, you need to build trust and understanding first. Give yourselves time, but invest in the relationship. It will pay off. In great teams, people know each other well. They trust each other. They understand each other, care about each other. In these teams, people feel better, they collaborate better, and perform better. They are happier. Let me tell you a story I've recently heard. The team had an important full-day planning meeting, but one of the team members felt very distracted this particular day. He wasn't a type of a person who shared their feelings with others, so he didn't tell if something was wrong. But the team cared about each other, and his colleagues asked if everything was okay. It turned out that his girlfriend was abroad, and she got robbed. She was taken 2 mobile phones, and before she managed to block them, the robbers used them to the maximum and made a bill for more than 6,000 euros. He contacted the operator and tried to explain that this was a fraud, but they did nothing. The team helped him. There was a guy in the team who had a background in sales, and he was very good in the art of persuasion. They immediately called the operator again, and he assisted the wretch by actively persuading that this was all a fraud. They spent 2 hours on the phone, and finally, they managed to do it. The bill was cancelled, and the guy felt a big relief. It helped him forget about the problem, and he made a tremendous job during the rest of the planning meeting. He was like a newborn. It wasn't possible if people in the team didn't care about each other, trust each other, and help each other, even in non-work-related stuff. I encourage all senior developers, and actually all software developers, to build the culture of trust, help, and understanding in their teams and their organizations. In our industry, we need to continuously learn new things and gain new skills. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep up with the fast-changing environment in which we work. The fact that we get older every day doesn't help with that. Our cognitive skills will never be as good as when we were young. Therefore, we need to be using our knowledge and experience to help out in learning. We need to learn how to learn deliberately. In the 1970s, the brothers Dreyfus began doing their research on how people attain and master skills. They looked at highly skilled practitioners, including commercial airline pilots and chess masters. They came up with a handful model of skill acquisition. This model, unlike other models that rate the whole person, is applicable per skill. It means that in this model you can be a novice in one skill, let's say cooking, and an expert in another skill, let's say coding. With any skill, you start as a novice. At this stage, you need a set of clear rules. This is when all those beginner's guides are handy. Let's say you start learning design patterns. At this level, you will read about them and use them specifically in the examples explained by the book. If you gain enough experience, you will start to use rules you know in new situations, and you will make mistakes applying these rules when it's inappropriate. You are an advanced beginner. Regarding design patterns, you will try to use those you know everywhere. And this is where the famous Dunning-Kruger effect takes place. Do you remember me talking about bugs in our minds? Cognitive biases? This is another one of them, whereby people think that they are smarter than they really are. At the beginning of skill acquisition, your confidence grows fast. When you're an advanced beginner, you are really confident at what you know. When you progress, your confidence will drop, and it will start to rebuild if you make enough of effort to help it. But it will merely approach the level of confidence you have when being an advanced beginner. If you start realizing that there are situations in which rules don't apply, and it becomes unclear to you which rules you should use, then you are becoming competent. At this stage, you find yourself making lots of mistakes, but gradually learning from them. Taking our example, at this point you realize that design patterns aren't applicable everywhere. You may feel confused and overwhelmed. But you will also find places where they fit very well, and if you use them, it will lead to feelings of great satisfaction and excitement. Congratulations! You are competent at the design patterns. And this is where most of us stop, which isn't really bad, because being competent at design patterns is enough for many developers. If you want to go further than this, you need to invest a lot of time and effort to break through this invisible wall that separates you from the next level, which is being proficient. Extraordinary investment here means that just gaining experience isn't enough. It's okay until you become competent, but if you want to go further, you need to do more than this. At this level, you take advantage of the holistic approach, which helps you make better decisions. Do you remember when I talked about that finding a higher purpose and understanding the domain should help to make better decisions? This is it, but now you know that it wouldn't be that effective for a novice or advanced beginner. You have to be at least competent to take full advantage of it. In our example, a proficient person is capable of using the holistic approach and the context to choose the best design pattern to use in a particular case. However, the decision is still analytical. What makes someone an expert is an intuition. On this level, you make decisions instinctively and intuitively. You don't need to analyze which design pattern is the best to the case. You just know it. And you may find it too difficult to explain to someone else why your decision is right. Practicing teaching helps experts learn to explain their way of thinking. Also, at this level, you should be able to create your own new design patterns. Dreyfus model helps to understand what resources you need to continue your progress in a particular skill. A novice doesn't need more than a book or an online course. Nice. Nice. A short music break. Okay, let's get back to the topic. I said that if you're a novice, you don't need more than a book or an online course for beginners, right? Then, when you are an advanced beginner, you need practicing and experimenting. A competent should be getting knowledge from many sources and comparing it. A good mentor or teacher can help a lot at this level. To be proficient, you need to put additional effort on understanding the background, the context, and the internals. And to be an expert, well, frankly, I don't know. I don't find myself being an expert at any skill. At any level, you need to learn a lot. How to do it efficiently. First, take care of your physical health. Really, you should eat healthy and include leafy green vegetables, fatty fish, and nuts in your diet. Remember about drinking water and green tea. Eating dark chocolate can also help. What's more, you need to remember about the decent time of physical activeness and spending time on fresh air. All of these help your brain work better and improve your cognitive abilities. Second, techniques. You most probably heard about mind mapping. Many people find it helpful, so you can try yourself and see how it works. Third, which I would like to elaborate, rules. There is a set of rules of effective learning, and I would like to talk about some of them. Focus. Your brain prefers similar circumstances at deep work and learning. If you use some productivity techniques which help you to focus at work, you can try it for learning as well. Pomodoro, fighting off distractors like social media, and meditation work well both for deep work and learning. Just remember to give your brain time to unfocus. A lonely walk, a nap, or any straightforward task during which you can leave your mind alone can help to boost productivity, creativity, and learning effectiveness. How many times have you come up with a great idea when doing dishwashing or taking a shower? This is what I mean. If you want to learn more about this subject, I really recommend this book, which is Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Practice makes perfect. Actually, practice is essential to learn any skill. Does any one of you know someone who learned to ride a bike by just watching how other people ride bikes? You need to ride a bike yourself to learn it, right? And the same, you can't learn to code by just reading programming books or watching online tutorials. You need to code yourself to learn it. And the same is with virtually any skill you can imagine. But any practicing isn't enough. You need to practice deliberately. How to do that? First, of course, you need to have a goal. What do I want to learn? What do I want to master? Then you need to split it into a list of well-defined tasks. These tasks should be appropriately difficult. They should be challenging, but also doable. After a task is completed, you need an assessment to get the feedback you can act on. Tasks should also provide opportunities for repetition and correction of errors. If you want to learn more about the importance of practicing, please take a look at Pick How to Master Almost Anything by Anders Ericsson. Self-reference. Imagine that you are at the cocktail party. You talk to someone and a lot of other people are talking to each other as well. You hear them talking, but you can't understand a word. However, as soon as someone says your name, you can immediately identify it. This is called a cocktail party effect. It turns out that you can be important to many people, but the most important person you are important to is yourself. And you can take advantage of it while learning. This is called a self-reference effect. It shows that people who are asked to remember information when it is related in some way to themselves, they do it better. When you learn something, try to think of it and refer it to yourself. Get some personal relation to what you learn. You can compare it with your knowledge, experience, or beliefs. It's perfectly fine to ponder about an interesting paragraph you have just read in a book, or do a pause when listening to a talk to think about it. If you can't pause, like now, unless you watch it later on the internet, make notes and refer it to them later, or at least take a look at slides on your way back home. Reflect on what you learn and do it alone. If you are learning a new programming language, you may want to read a book about it or watch an online course and compare it to the language you know well. It sounds cool to read JavaScript for PHP developers kind of books, but it seems to be more effective if you don't rely on someone else's comparisons, but do them yourselves. Teaching. Studies show that students who spend time teaching what they have just learned go on to show better understanding and knowledge retention than students who simply spend the same time restudying. Teaching others can help a lot in learning and skill acquisition. One of the ways to do it is to give talks at bar camps, meetups like PHPers in Poland, or conferences like this. But this doesn't necessarily need to be the way for you. It has been estimated that about 75% of people experience some degree of fear when it comes to public speaking. It's worth working on overcoming these fears for sure. You can start small with a presentation in front of your team or your office. My experience shows that doing public speaking in front of the familiar audience and in front of people you know helps in building confidence. Then you can continue growing and start presenting at local meetups and then maybe challenging yourselves at the conferences like this. However, I know that public speaking is not the thing for everyone, so don't torture yourself if you know that it isn't your thing. There are many other great things you can do. You can offer help to your teammates or colleagues at the company. You can start a discussion club at your company with people with similar interests so that you share your knowledge and experience together on regular meetings. You can write answers on Stack Overflow. This is very rewarding and it gives a great sense of giving back to the community. Hence, every one of us is using Stack Overflow to find help, right? If you like code review, you can do it on GitHub or give help to people posting their projects on Facebook groups like PHPers group on Facebook we have. This is also a way of teaching as long as you intend to help and are constructive. You can write blog posts or articles, but if you haven't ever done that, please start small. You don't need to start with buying a server, finding a domain, installing WordPress, and finding this perfect theme for 2 evenings. There is a risk that zeal is quickly over. Instead, start small with some online publishing platform, which has low entry threshold. If you find that blogging is your thing, you can move to your own blog later. If you want to learn more about how our thinking and learning work in general, I recommend reading this book, Pragmatic Thinking and Learning by Andy Hunt. It is very likely that when you are or when you will become a senior developer, you will still have many years of your career in front of you. If you don't want to cut back, you need to develop yourself. There are many career paths you can choose from, and whatever path you choose, there is a set of skills it's worth investing in. Holistic view and wide context. Find a big goal, be curious of the domain and your users. Working with people, because people is the hardest part of computer science. And learning how to learn deliberately. How to start even tomorrow. Find a topic you are interested in. It can even be something from my talk or any other talk at this conference. Pick a resource and learn from it. When you are doing it, try to be focused. Take notes, try to compare it with your beliefs and experience. Find someone to discuss it with. If you are competent at this particular skill, it might be good to find a mentor or teacher. Use knowledge in practice and experiment. And then share what you learned with others. When you are done with this loop, iterate again with the same or different skill. Have a good luck in professional growth. Thank you. In case there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. We have a few minutes still. Anyone? No one? All right. Thank you and have a great conference.